Anxiety basically is that anticipation of something going wrong. It's a difficult feeling to deal with, and it's associated with fear. So it kind of erupts as an intense, fearful experience. And it can arise from a number of different sources. Probably the easiest to deal with is situational anxiety, which is the kind of response you have to, you've lost your job and you only have a month's worth of money in the bank and you got to get another job. And that can either paralyze you so that you can't do anything, or it can motivate you to get a lot of applications out there or get your resume out there.
Now, you said that this is about anticipation, anticipating something's going to happen. Can that not be a good thing? Don't we get a little anxious on our birthday? Don't we get a great anticipation about the arrival of Christmas morning and things like that too?
I would say that's excitement, not anxiety. Anxiety is the anticipation of something bad happening, not something good.
Now, so the influences on something bad happening to us can be brought on by ourselves, of course, but don't we now live in a world that's just full of the possibility of something bad happening? Isn't the current economic crisis and threats of wars and all of that, don't we live in times that would be just fraught with anxiety?
Absolutely. Yes, we do.
Wow.
Like there can absolutely be, almost always there is an external source to anxiety, but there are people who live with anxiety. It's just always in them. And that can be quite crippling. But the world we live in right at the moment is so chaotic that, yes, sure, lots of us are feeling tremendous anxiety.
And none of them have anything to do with our control. Does that impact the difference in terms of how we live with anxiety? It's beyond my control, so therefore I don't worry about it?
Well, it's beyond my control, therefore I worry more.
Wow.
It's when we don't feel that we do have any control, this is the thing that's so terrible about anxiety and brings about such an awful feeling. This is why sometimes we get paralyzed by anxiety, because we don't think we have any control over what's going on, and so we don't feel like we have anything we can do. But often, so one of the problems with anxiety is it can cut off your capacity for thinking. The part of the brain that does the thinking and strategizing just shuts down. So one of the things that we can do to wake it up is to find things that we can control. What is there in your life, no matter how small, that you can control, that you can have some impact on? So it can be something as simple as organizing something in your home office that needs organizing, or attending to some particular task that you've been putting off. So anything that you can do to begin to establish some sense of control and start a kind of an upswing of, I can manage this, I can manage this. Manage this.
Sorry, I was going to say, we've talked before about how the problems that you deal with on a professional basis in your life, in your professional life, sometimes can be manipulated or controlled through medication, and other times that's not the case. And I wonder
Correct.
Sometimes with anxiety if people have not turned to kind of self-medication in order to control it.
Sure, there's a lot of that. Drinking, using various sorts of drugs, prescription and otherwise. There are, for somebody who suffers from anxiety that doesn't have any specific origin, that can be identified. It's not situational. There are medications that help to reduce it. And that can be a real boon for somebody who doesn't otherwise have any resource to deal with it, and when it's overwhelming. So, yes, there's a wide range, just like depression or any of the other sorts of difficult feelings that we deal with. There are sometimes simply chemical remedies, which are prescribed by psychiatrists, or there are activities. Physical activity is something that a lot of people find very helpful. So I have a friend who, when she gets a panic attack, she goes for a walk, and that really helps. Other people who have access to a gym or gym equipment will work out. Doing something physical is often very helpful. And if it gets the thinking brain back online, then that makes a big difference. That gets you started on being able to be effective.
Now, you've said that before. The thinking brain goes offline, and that's where the difficulty comes in. And, of course, it tends to magnify itself as well. And these problems of anxiety, these problems of feeling morose and so on, grow into something else. Is that the case here, or is anxiety just anxiety forever? Or does it become something even bigger, even worse?
No, anxiety is not necessarily anxiety forever. It certainly can be dealt with. Well, you kind of got me stumped here.
Well, I didn't mean that anxiety stays with you forever. Obviously, you can deal with that. What I meant is that the problem of anxiety remains the problem of anxiety. It doesn't morph into something else. And then I'm asking the question, or does it?
Oh, I see. No, well, it will come and go as anxiety. Now, yeah, sometimes it is part of a trauma, post-traumatic stress disorder or some form of trauma. But if it is simply anxiety per se, then, yeah, it gets dealt with and it ebbs and flows, or it goes away in some instances. It depends on exactly where it's coming from. So what I have found is effective is when you can think, then you can come up with different ways of addressing it, particularly if it's a situational sort of thing. And a lot of people are experiencing that right now. They're, people who have retirement savings in the stock market are having to look at what they need to be doing with their money because the stock market is bouncing all over the place. So, when you can actually do something about the specific thing that's creating the anxiety, that is terrific. The other thing, when it's more general and it seems to come and go without any particular reason, things like exercise programs. One person I knew adjusted her diet and found that the anxiety kind of went away as she paid attention to what she was eating. So in some instances, that can be helpful if somebody is into diets. But learning how to do something that gives you a sense of control and increasing the different things that you can do to maintain a sense of being effective and being in control of your life. I think that is the most helpful thing that people can do.
Now, it's interesting. You mentioned a panic attack here moments ago. And I've been recently watching a TV program where a man has gone through or is going through all kinds of pressures in his life, all difficulties with the family, with his job, with his income. And he very often goes out for a run, a jog. So he's taking that physical activity route in order to kind of get a handle on what's going on. But in the recent episode, he's out for a run and then suddenly clutches at his chest and falls to the ground, and everybody gathers around looking at him, assuming heart attack. The emergency team comes and treats him as if he's had a heart attack, and off he goes in the ambulance. And the next scene is a doctor saying, "You had a panic attack. You don't have to worry about it." Yeah. And so you're saying that, exercise will help. This guy seems to have exacerbated the problem with his physical exercise. And everybody kind of breathes a sigh of relief. It's a panic attack. You don't have to worry. Because, because we're worried about the heart attack. We're not worried about the panic attack that literally took him physically to the ground.
Yeah. Yes. Well, it can be like that, for sure. Yeah, so I mean, this is all, there's no one particular solution. I mean, maybe instead of running, you should have been walking. I don't know. But, pushing yourself beyond your physical capabilities is not going to be of any benefit to you. So, you have to sort of find the different things. There is a therapist who has what she calls the 10% solution. And she advises that people find 10 things that make them feel 10% better. So sometimes these can be really very moderate and ordinary and, something like doing word puzzles or crosswords or something of that sort, that just calm you or distract you just enough for a bit that you feel differently. And so there are many different ways to deal with this, but the things that, in terms of anxiety, the things that help you feel effective, even if it's very small, can kind of get you moving in the right direction to being able to deal with it. Does that make sense?
It does, and I'm thinking that, people who don't understand anxiety, who perhaps live with someone who suffers from anxiety, don't understand the problem. They don't get it, and they think, just calm down, just relax, don't worry about it. And, of course, we're papering over the problem for that person because we simply don't get it. And I'm wondering, what does a family member do in a household with someone suffering with anxiety? What do we do? How do we relate? What should we say, or should we say nothing at all?
Well, probably listening is a far better thing. Listening and listening and listening. It is difficult because the person who is living with the person beset with anxiety wants to do something to make them feel better. But very often the listening and then gradually perhaps helping them to do reality checks, because sometimes that can be helpful too. Just how bad is it? Just how bad could it get? What is the worst thing that can happen? Has that happened? How likely is it to happen? Sometimes that can be helpful, but what I have found, and of course this helps me in my profession, is that when you listen long enough, very often people kind of find their way through, more because it's a problem shared. And then that helps them. It helps to lighten the load.
Well, how do you share the problem if you really don't suffer it? You don't appreciate that the thoughts and fears that are going through one partner's brain are not going through your brain, that you don't see the danger.
Well, the other person, the person who's feeling the anxiety, just gets to talk. They just get to talk. And you're listening. And that's the sharing part. You're not necessarily solving it for them or making any particular contribution all the time, or you may find something that you can say. But often, when somebody is just able to talk, it just lightens the load.
So we simply have to listen. We don't have to have the answer.
Exactly. In fact, the less concerned you are about having an answer, the better. Because it's so interesting when you do this for a living, listen to people for a living. Very often a session will end and there's no particular solution to the issue that they spoke about, but then they'll come in next week and they will have figured out something to do.
On their own.
Often what they do is brilliant, and it works. So there's a lot to be said for somebody having an opportunity just to get it out into the air, get it out of themselves, get it out of their own head. And that's where the listening can be very helpful.